Prosecutors detain one of President Park Geun-hye's former key aides after he denies forcing local companies to donate millions of dollars to two cultural foundations. And the president responds to the crisis by reshuffling her government. She appoints a new prime minister, finance, and safety ministers. Plus, the U.S. Federal Reserve holds rates steady but opens the door to a possible hike next month as the economy gains momentum and inflation picks up. These and more coming right up. Hello, it's Thursday, November 3rd here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. We start with the probe into the power abuse scandal surrounding President Park Geun-hye's close friend, Choi Soon-sil. The net widened late Wednesday as prosecutors detained former presidential secretary Ahn Jong-beom. He denies allegations of forcing local companies to donate tens of millions of dollars to two cultural foundations, which Choi is believed to have established and operated. Oh Jung-hee starts us off.
Seoul prosecutors arrested without warrant former presidential secretary Ahn Jong-beom late Wednesday night. The emergency detention was made at 11:40 p.m., roughly 10 hours after he first appeared at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office as a suspect in the ongoing abuse of power scandal surrounding Choi Soon-sil, President Park's longtime confidant. The prosecution said they made the arrest without warrant as Ahn denied most of the charges held against him during the questioning and has been found to have pressured some key witnesses to make false testimonies. They also had reason to believe Ahn could attempt to destroy evidence unless detained. Prosecutors must file a court request for an arrest warrant within 48 hours, or the suspect must be released. The prosecution is questioning the former presidential secretary on allegations of abusing his authority to help Choi establish the Mir and K-Sports Foundation and secure corporate donations of roughly $70 million. Ahn is being held as the main suspect in a crime of abuse of official authority, a charge that's only applied to public officials. As Choi has held no official post in the administration, Ahn becomes the main suspect and Choi an accomplice. Statements from the former Director General of K-Sports, the current Vice President of the Federation of Korean Industries, and an opposition lawmaker have indicated Ahn did pressure conglomerates into making donations. Prosecutors are also looking into whether more officials in the presidential office took part in or supported Choi in setting up the foundations. More than 50 conglomerates that donated funds to Choi's foundations are to be investigated as well. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Choi Soon-sil says she will attend today's court hearing that will determine her formal arrest. The comments were relayed through Choi's lawyer, who told reporters on Wednesday that Choi expressed her willingness to show up. The hearing scheduled for 3 p.m. today comes a day after prosecutors requested the Seoul Central District Court to issue a warrant for Choi's formal arrest. If approved, Choi will be charged with abuse of authority and attempted fraud. She's also accused of using her ties to President Park for her own financial gain, as well as meddling in state affairs. And with state affairs grinding to a halt due to the scandal, President Park Geun-hye has reshuffled her cabinet. On Wednesday, she named a new prime minister and finance minister who also serves as the deputy prime minister. A new minister of public safety and security was also appointed. Song Ji-sun has the details.
Just 3 days after replacing key aides linked to the Choi Soon-sil scandal, President Park Geun-hye has named a new prime minister and deputy prime minister in an effort to set up a new and more balanced cabinet to carry her administration through the remainder of her term. Kim Byung-jun, a professor at Kookmin University of Public Administration, who once served as the policy chief to the late President Roh Moo-hyun, is the nominee for prime minister.
We expect the nominee to fulfill his role as Prime Minister, meeting the public's needs with policies catering to the people from their perspective. He's the right person to overcome the current crisis and lead the cabinet for the nation's future.
Meanwhile, current Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won canceled a planned handover ceremony on Wednesday to take care of state affairs because the Prime Minister nominee will have to undergo a parliamentary confirmation hearing before he can take the post. Financial Services Commission Chairman Ahn Jong-beom was named to replace Yoo Il-ho as Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. The presidential office said Im, with his depth of experience in both the public and private sectors of finance and the economy, is the right person to carry out the government's major reform drives. President Park has also named former Vice Minister of Gender Equality and Family Park Seung-ju to serve as the new Minister for Public Safety and Security, based on a recommendation from the new Prime Minister nominee. President Park's designation of a Liberal Prime Minister could mark the beginning of a politically neutral cabinet in which the new Prime Minister would have greater power over domestic affairs and the head of state could focus more on external affairs like diplomacy and defense. Now all eyes are on how the two will organize the power structure, with Kim saying he will outline the details at a press conference on Thursday. 송지선, Arirang News.
However, the top office's decision has sparked anger and criticism from the National Assembly. The opposition parties say the move shows how President Park does not understand the public's will, and they vowed to boycott the nominees' confirmation hearings. Park Ji-won tells us more.
Korea's three main opposition parties are lambasting President Park Geun-hye for deciding to nominate a new prime minister without consulting them. In a meeting of opposition floor leaders on Wednesday, they said the move goes against her ruling party's proposal for a coalition cabinet, and they vowed to boycott the confirmation hearing for the prime minister nominee.
How could the presidential office even think about resolving the current crisis without consulting the opposition parties? The president has decided to ignore the public's will and continue her unilateral way of managing state affairs. We cannot accept this cabinet reshuffle.
Based on the outcome of the general election in April, it should be impossible to appoint a prime minister without the approval of the opposition bloc. But the presidential office has picked a fight again. The Justice Party rejects the president's nomination.
Ahn Cheol-soo, the former minor opposition People's Party leader and a potential presidential candidate in 2017, said President Park has insulted an angry public.
President Park Geun-hye should step down immediately. You are no longer the President of the Republic of Korea. You don't have the right to destroy the Constitution. You have no right to trample on people's pride and esteem.
Heavyweight politicians from the president's ruling Saenuri Party were also critical of the surprise nominations.
The unilateral announcement, made without any prior consultation with the opposition, only demonstrates the president's continued lack of communication.
Meanwhile, Saenuri Party leaders, who have been under increasing pressure from people in and outside of the party to step down, have refused to resign. With the scandal escalating by the day, the public seems to be losing faith in the presidential office, with recent polls showing that 8 out of 10 respondents think that the president should also be subject to investigation. Whether the changes will depend on the next steps taken by both the presidential office and the parliament. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, over in the U.S., the Federal Reserve has once again held interest rates steady, but set the stage for a possible hike for next month. In a statement released on Wednesday, the Fed said the American economy had gained steam and job gains remained solid. Policymakers were also optimistic that inflation was nearing their 2% target. All this points to a rate increase in December when the committee gathers for its final meeting of the year. The Fed's wait-and-see approach was widely expected, with the U.S. presidential election under a week away. China has lodged a strong complaint over the South Korean Coast Guard's use of weapons during a clampdown on aggressive Chinese vessels illegally fishing in Korean waters. But with Beijing's half-hearted efforts to lay out measures to monitor illegal activities, tensions continue to simmer between the two sides. Oh Soo-young reports.
China on Wednesday said it was very dissatisfied with South Korean Coast Guards firing warning shots at its fishing boats illegally operating in South Korean waters.
China is strongly dissatisfied over South Korea deploying weapons to conduct violent enforcement under complicated circumstances at sea. Using weapons with capability of mass destruction against fishing boats makes it very easy to cause casualties and major property loss.
The strong words from Beijing come a day after South Korean Coast Guards fired machine guns at Chinese fishing boats, the most aggressive confrontation yet by South Korea against Chinese boats that regularly fish illegally off the country's coast. No casualties were reported. Disputes over illegal fishing have been a sore spot for the two countries for years, and there have been numerous clashes between the Coast Guard and Chinese crew members. But Tuesday's aggressive action by South Korean Coast Guard was promoted by a sinking of a 4.5-ton Korean Coast Guard ship last month while trying to intercept a Chinese boat. For years, South Korea has repeated its complaint to China about illegal fishing by Chinese trawlers and urged Beijing to help come up with a permanent solution in vain. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean Army says it has conducted a river crossing exercise in Yeoju, south of Seoul. The military exercise is part of the Hoguk drill, which combines various branches of the country's military, including the Army, Air Force, and Navy. Kim Hyun-bin files this report.
Shelling by North Korean artillery has severed the bridge in half. A cloud of smoke gives cover to a force of K-200 amphibious tanks fearlessly crossing over. After securing the bridgehead, Cobra attack helicopters come to guard against a possible surprise attack by the north. Soon after, dozens of troops work to set up a floating bridge, taking just 1 hour to complete a 300-meter span, and allowing a phalanx of K-1A1 tanks and dozens of heavy artillery to cross the bridge and make their way to enemy territory. For the Korean military, the river crossing exercise is a must, as there are countless streams and rivers on the Korean peninsula.
The purpose is for our mechanical unit to get past all the obstacles and allow our troops to conduct infiltration operations. No matter what the situation is, the 8th Division will move swiftly to fulfill its mission.
U.S. Forces Korea Commander Vincent Brooks also watched over the exercise, in which some 200 troops and 150 heavy artillery, including K-9 tanks, conducted their mission successfully. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Whether you're a student, the family breadwinner, a homemaker, or in your twilight years, there are aspects of daily life that can be stressful. It's impossible to completely avoid stress, so how about learning ways to deal with it? Introducing some ways Koreans try and unwind, Lee Ji-won reports.
Stress can cause sleep disorders and weaken the immune system, not to mention the damage to a person's mental faculties by impairing the ability to learn and memorize, which is why it's so important to relieve stress. In a public survey of about 800 people by a Korea-based job matching firm, the preferred way to relieve stress is drinking, followed by exercising and binge eating. But a significant proportion of respondents also said they have no preferred way of relieving their stress.
It's important for people to find their own ways of relieving stress because everyone has different hobbies and interests. Fishing or hiking may be the perfect way of reducing stress for one person, but such activities can actually be stressful for those who like socializing.
For such reasons and more, ways to relieve stress has been diversifying these days, with some even setting new trends. Here, at a resort in Gyeonggi-do Province, workers from a small company have gathered for a 2-day recreational camp. The crew in charge of their activities is a team of MCs and staff members the company has hired. And one popular activity offered at this camp is music therapy, where each participant learns a new instrument and creates their own melodies with fellow attendees.
Normally, we would be at the office working, but coming here to get some fresh air and spend some quality time with my friends was really nice and stress-relieving.
Another popular way of relieving stress for many Koreans is spending time at a comic book cafe.
This is where I can really do whatever I want without being bothered by anyone. It's a time just for me. I think it's a really effective way of relieving stress.
It's really cozy in here, and I can take a nap, eat snacks, and read books, so I come here often.
At the cafe, people can enjoy comic books just like when they were younger. And while they are not alone, they also don't have to interact with others, giving them psychological boundaries.
Psychology experts say that as society becomes more individualistic, even more interesting and personal ways of relieving stress will arise in the future. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
And that wraps it up for now. Thank you for watching. I'm Hwang Jie, and I'll be back in less than 2 hours for more news updates. So do stay tuned for that, and goodbye for now.